So this is Tyler reporting for Why Not News from the Unitarian Universalist Fellowship here in Rutland, Vermont, where we're going to be meeting with Iraq Veterans Against the War and having a fundraiser for their efforts here at this beautiful place that I've never been before. I'm very grateful to be here. Here we go.
Okay, so this is the Witness the Cost of War memorial that the Unitarian Universalist Church in Rutland had constructed. It was designed and built by Dennis Duham, and we unveiled it in 2005 Veterans Day. And at that point in time, there were 2,000 stars on it, and each star marks the one American soldier who's been killed in the occupation and war against Iraq. As you can see, this entire wall has now been filled, and we've begun to now go down into the new wall. It was a very powerful decision that we made in terms of how do we accommodate the fact that the war and occupation continue, the deaths continue, and the wall is finite, and it seems like the war is not. I love it because as we gathered together as a church community and said, what are we going to do with the fact that the wall is full? Two different voices rang out. One was one of our oldest members and one was one of our youngest members, and both of them said, I guess we just need to stop the war. Very profound. Yeah. If you come over here, and again, the memorial is usually facing this way, and so it's kind of a visual on it to the street. It was moved for Memorial Day commemoration and interfaith service that was done, and so that's why it's off. But this stone cairn is an equally important part of the memorial, and the stone cairn represents the tens of thousands, if not hundreds of thousands, of Iraqis who unfortunately for most of us are unnamed, who have been killed during the war and occupation. And we chose very deliberately to use rubble out of the slate quarries in our state to represent kind of the powerful message of human beings being considered expendable. This stone cairn should be much, much larger. We all say that if it was truly representative of the number of Iraqis, it would be as large as this church. So that's our story.
Well, thank you very much.
You're welcome. We sit, and they've been nice enough to donate this space, as well as much of the food has been donated by members of the UU Church. So again, this is an incredible community partnership. So what we're going to do is we're going to begin our program here, and I'm going to first ask Joseph Gainza from the American Friends Service Committee to come up and say a few words and introduce one of our speakers. And Joseph I sprung this on Joseph when he walked in the door, and he was nice enough to say he couldn't say no to me. And so I'm just so thrilled that he came to this event, came all the way down from Montpelier area. And Joseph, as many of you know, and the American Friends Service Committee, as many of you know, is a long-standing advocate for peace and justice issues around the globe. And Joseph is a wonderful representative of that organization. So Joseph is going to say a few words.
Well, thank you all for being here, and Carol, thank you. You know, Carol always thanks everybody else for all the work that they've done to make this possible, but there's somebody who stands in the center of all that activity that gets everybody else energized to do the work that they do and the generous donations that have been given in all this, and that's Carol. When Liam wanted to have a fundraiser in town, he knew who to call, and of course Carol has a hard time saying no also. So I think we should give Carol Tashi a hand. She's both a great gift to Rutland, but also a great gift to the movement for justice and peace in this state. Well, I just was asked to say a few words, and I've already said some, so I'll say a few less than I had intended. But There are people here old enough to remember that what we are helping to support today, veterans of an unjust war who are going to talk with their brothers and sisters in the military to get them to understand the reasons for this war and to let them know that they're not alone in their questioning about this war. They're not alone in doubting that perhaps this isn't what they should be doing and this is not what they signed up for. That these veterans are going to be talking with these folks to encourage them to understand that it is patriotic to say no when your government is doing something wrong, immoral, and illegal. It is patriotic to say no. And those of us who are old enough to remember that this was done before in another war that was fought for equally illegal and immoral reasons in Southeast Asia. And veterans of that war, the Vietnam War, would set up coffee houses outside of military bases. And doing the same things what these veterans are going to be doing. They helped the soldiers inside to understand that when your government is doing the wrong thing, it is patriotic to say no. So here we are again, unfortunately, and there have been many military conflicts in which the United States has been involved since Vietnam. And we as citizens of this country, we who do love this country, have to continue to ask, why is it that we get involved in these wars? In whose interests are these wars being fought? They're certainly not in the interests of the kid living in the inner city who doesn't have adequate education, doesn't have good job opportunities. It's certainly not the woman who's living in a rural area raising 2 kids alone and trying to make ends meet, or families that are trying to put a household together, pay all the bills, and maybe something set aside for their retirement. It's not in their interests that these wars are being fought. And we have to ask, in whose interests are these wars being fought? Are they the interests of the people who own the means of production in this country? Are they in the interests of people whose interests in oil and interests in making sure that the economies of other nations are opened to their investment? Is that what these wars are being fought for? For the top 1/10% of the wealthiest people who since the year 1972 have seen their incomes rise 467%? Is that what the interests of these wars are fought for? If that's the case, then we as patriotic Americans have to say no. And I thank you very much for being here, and I sincerely thank the veterans who are putting themselves on the line, going out there, proud to have served their country, and know that what they're doing now is in the service of their country. And they are all helping us to say no more. So I'd like to introduce, and it's my pleasure to introduce Adrienne Kinney, one of those veterans. Adrienne was a U.S. Army linguistics expert in Arabic for 10 years. She now works at the Veterans Administration doing research, and she's a member of the Iraq Veterans Against the War. So Adrienne, please come forward. Thank you.
Very much for coming tonight. It really means a lot to us. I'm going to read an excerpt from Warrior Writers. It's a compilation of works that have been published by Drew Cameron in Burlington, Vermont, who's also a member of Iraq Veterans Against the War. And it's a compilation of works written by veterans, all members of Iraq Veterans Against the War, about their experience. And they've held these writing workshops periodically throughout the course of their membership at IVAW. The second was just held in Burlington a few months ago, called Remaking Sense, and they're actually going to be holding another writing workshop in Chicago in a few weeks. And the veterans who participate really feel like being able to write and share their experiences and kind of putting them down on paper, and just, it gives them a sense of being able to release some of the things that they feel about their works in this war. So I'm going to read one work. It's called Duffel Bags, written by Garrett Repenhagen, who served in Iraq, and he wrote this in February 2005. As I leave my metal box that I have called home for the last year, I carry 2 duffel bags. The first is full of the gear and clothing that has offered me survival and protection. The other bag is harder to see with the uncompassionate eye. I have filled the second with guilt, the shame for the part I have played in this campaign in Iraq. It is more useless than the first, however, it is a burden I must carry. The ritual a soldier goes through to fill a duffel with the maximum amount of gear is a wrestling match. It took every trick in the book to fit all my soul's depth into the long green bag. First, I rolled everything tight and squeezed it down, pinching and tucking to wedge it in. As I filled, I punched the sides, I held the edges and smashed my foot into the opening. I dropped it again and again, like packing cigarettes. After fitting all my dead karma inside, I had to sit on it while pulling and straining to clip the top closed. Out of bed, I finally collapsed on the top of the bulging bundle. The duffel will be dragged around with me, perhaps for the rest of my life, from home to home, town to town, until I am too old to lift it. Then I will lay down beside the large duffel and crawl inside to die. So when you see a soldier returning home with a duffel bag at a bus stop, an airport baggage claim, or being stuffed into a taxi, think about what is inside the bag. It might be rolled clothing of browns or tans, or it could be dark secrets that he will never reveal to his family. The soldier will not put his burden on you, but if you feel any responsibility for the weight of it, you may carry it for a while, if it would make you feel any more decent. And if you force him to open it, perhaps everyone can take a little with them to relieve the strain of those who served. It might be a reminder that we are all at fault for America's role in the violence in the Middle East. However, a soldier is trained to sacrifice. He will take the burden to the grave, or make a grave out of it if he must. And that was written by Garrett Rappenhagen. I actually participated at the writing workshop that took place in Burlington. It was about a month or so ago. And while it does help a lot, it was actually a really incredibly hard experience for me. Especially just getting involved with IBAW. I had been out of the Army for like 2 years by the time that I really started getting involved with what was going on. And I had kind of not even thought about stuff for a very long time. And so it's kind of been somewhat emotional. It's been kind of an emotional ride, I think, for all of us participating in Iraq Veterans Against the War. But I really believe truly that IBAW and the efforts that are made by the veterans who are organizing the events like Liam and this bus tour, it will make a difference. And I can just say that I have gotten so much from going out to events and just having people come out and support us. And I would like to thank you all for coming out tonight and supporting this and supporting Liam and the bus tour. And I don't know really what else to say about that, but if you would like to get a copy of Warrior Writers, we have them in the back and are for $10, and the proceeds will go to help fund future writing events. And we're also going to share proceeds with Liam to help with the bus tour. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Adrienne. Adrienne also is going to be back in this neck of the woods on June 14th. Jan and Frank Ash are going to also do a fundraiser for the Iraq Veterans Against the War bus tour, and it will be June 14th at their Dog Star studio, and they'll be showing the film Sir No Sir, and Adrienne will be just a keynote speaker, and we hope that if you can't attend, you'll at least help spread the word. So thank you, Adrienne. I get the honor of introducing Liam. About 3 weeks ago, in fact, I went and I checked my email, and it was just about exactly 3 weeks ago, I got an email from Derry Madden. Now, I knew Liam Madden, but I didn't know Derry Madden. And Derry Madden writes to me, I'd like to tell you a little bit about what Liam Madden is up to, and by the way, he happens to be my baby brother. And so since then, I've gotten to have an email relationship with Derry, who I think is fantastic. Please tell her I said that. And the original email 3 weeks ago said, Liam Madden and other Iraq Veterans Against the War are planning a summer bus tour of 21 military bases. And would you and Central Vermont Peace and Justice be willing to help fundraise? And without even a shadow of a doubt, I think it's one of the things I love about Central Vermont Peace and Justice, we said yes, of course, how could we say no? And we did two things. The first is what we're doing here today, which is a nice little gathering, and we have some food, and we have an opportunity to get to talk and meet people and share our energy. The second thing we did was we started an email campaign. And we just kind of wrote up a little email and sent it off to everybody on our list with a big banner across it that said, please forward this to other people that you know. Send to your family and your friends and your neighbors and any list that you have. And it explained the fundraising efforts. And Liam, I want to just let you know that I have a little envelope for you. Come on up. In 3 weeks' time, the people of Vermont, and not just Vermont, there's checks in here from Ohio and New York, and not counting what we're raising here tonight, we're presenting Liam with $2,750. So I'm going to stop talking and I'm going to turn it over to Liam, somebody who is really one of my heroes. I don't know you very well, but you've really inspired me. And I feel very honored to have the opportunity to be part of the work that you're doing. So take it away, Liam.
Thank you all for coming here tonight, and thank you, Carol, and the people I know well. And thank you, the people who I hope to know better by the end of the night. We're here today to connect with each other and also to support a very important project, and that's the IVAW bus tour that's going to happen this summer. And I just want to tell you a little bit about the tour, first off. The tour is designed to go to active duty military bases and start a meaningful conversation, a simple dialogue that really is intended to reach out to these troops who are struggling with a lot of stuff in their heart, and we don't think there's anybody more qualified to help them or to relate to them than us, Iraq Veterans Against the War. So it sounds very simple and pretty, maybe not that exciting and extravagant, but a simple conversation is a very effective tool in raising consciousness. And if we want a military that will stop fighting a war, or if we want soldiers that will stop fighting a war, we need to have a military with a different level of consciousness. So that is the intent, is to start a meaningful conversation. There's going to be around 10 vets on this bus, and when we were talking about it, we wanted to make an IVAW all-star team. So it's very, people that will be good at those conversations, and we go to these military bases and avoid the two traps that we've come across in the peace community a lot, and that's, we want to do something, let's have a rally, and let's have a panel discussion and talk politics, which I think those two things are effective in their own right, and there's a time and place for them, but if we're going to try and reach out to the military, we need to try a different route. So that's what this dialogue is intended to avoid. Some of the traps in the past. It's time that we've started to learn from what hasn't worked and progress to what will. One of the frustrating things for me, and I'm sure you guys can relate, is being in Vermont, you feel, what can I do? What can I do that will help end this war? What can I do that will reach out and effectively change other people's minds or turn the tides in other people's hearts? Because in Vermont, you turn around and there's probably someone that feels pretty similarly frustrated. And myself dealing with that frustration, I said, well, we need to go to where they're not feeling and talking like us. So I really just appreciate the support. I appreciate everyone coming out and just learning about this and supporting this. I believe that we can't go and talk to the troops that we're going to be talking to and foment any great upheaval. That's not what it's about. We're not trying to undermine the effectiveness of the military. We're going there to expose them to us because they need to simply know that Iraq Veterans Against the War exists, because it's just a relieving feeling. I swear to God, it is a relieving feeling to know that you are not alone, that there are other people out there that feel and think like you do, because it's very lonely and isolating to be stuck in the heart of the military-industrial complex, stuck in the heart of an illegal war, and not know that there's people out there who feel like you. So that's the gist of it. We're not going to tell them everything that we believe we understand. For instance, I feel that we live in a country that is diseased democracy. I think that checks and balances, if they worked, would have already corrected this war. I think the opposition party is a myth if they continue to fund this war. But that's not necessarily what we're not trying to undermine the understanding of the world for these troops, but we definitely are presenting them with the resources we have and exposing them to our existence, which I think is important. And also, if we don't think that that sounds very, very dramatic, and what kind of effect will a tour like this have, I have a couple of examples that I think I remind myself of when I think, a tour, conversations, cookouts. That's basically what we're doing. We're having some music and some cookouts at all these places. Well, when I came into the anti-war movement, I was sitting in a car in a traffic jam in Virginia, and I was calling my friend who I was visiting on a naval base, and I said, "What are we going to do tonight?" He said, "I found a flyer for an anti-war discussion," and we got there halfway through it, and there was a very academic-sounding, very intelligent man at the front of the room, and he was talking about the Vietnam GI resistance movement, which is not taught very thoroughly, if at all, in American high schools. But I was somewhat familiar, but this guy had a depth of knowledge. He wrote a book on it. And from that night, where some organizer decided that he was going to bring an author and a professor into town to give a discussion, from that night grew the Appeal for Redress, which is a movement I founded from within the military. That just kind of leads into OFC. OFC is a mock combat patrol we performed in our full camouflage and battle dress utilities in Washington, D.C., and then later, a month later, in New York City. Is happening next weekend in Chicago, and then the following July 4th in Denver. Just happened last Saturday in L.A. And you feel like, what effect is this having? The intent is, it's called Operation First Casualty, because the first casualty in war is the truth. But at the same time, other than really just shocking people and making them kind of have a small taste of the reality of living in an occupation, what are we really accomplishing? And from that came the military, the government's response, which was recommending some of the participants, myself and a friend of mine named Adam Kokish, for other than honorable discharges from the inactive reserve, which presented us with the opportunity to very publicly and viciously defend ourselves. And since then, we've gotten a lot of very positive press. We feel basically the entire country is on our side. We are expressing our, freedom of speech, our political dissent, and veterans for foreign wars, veterans of foreign wars, a very typically conservative organizations come out and said that, you know, the military needs to exercise some common sense here and end this, because we can't be fighting for free speech in Iraq and then trying to silence veterans here at home. So, although both the OFC and that night at in Virginia, where I met the person that I would found the appeal for redress with, didn't really seem like it had an immediate effect, something very powerful grew out of both of those. So I think that's kind of the same attitude that we're going into this tour with. You do not know what you can catalyze. You do not know what will grow from your actions, as long as you go out and put your God's honest effort into trying. So I'm really excited, and I'm really excited to have the support of everyone here. Thank you so much, because the Vietnam War, it ended basically when soldiers stopped fighting. And I don't think there's another really way to end it. I mean, it seems to me that the political animals in our capital don't respond to the will of the people. 70% of this country opposes this war, and yet they continue to fund it. And to me, I think they need to be facing a threat of something. They need to see people actively pursuing peace and know that the people with a conscience, the people of conscience, have the initiative. And if, for the rest of the night, if we could just follow that note, realizing that there's a lot we can do if we have the initiative, and we need to have the initiative, and have discussions, and connect with each other about that, and keep our roots strong, and discuss how locally we can continue to maintain the initiative. So I look forward to hearing from everyone.